Hey guys, so this is a 2003 Infiniti M45. It also applies to probably most ABS systems, but this car is a 2003 M45. So what I have is a ABS light, a slip light, and also a VDC off light that are all on. Now I took it to Infiniti because I don't have all the diagnostic tools that they do, and obviously they have more knowledge and experience and the equipment and tools to at least diagnose the vehicle properly. I'm not a mechanic, so I'm just kind of helping people out that may have similar issues as I do. So I'm going to start the vehicle. So as you can see, those lights stay on. VDC off, the slip light along with the ABS light. So sorry for that sun. So I'm going to turn the vehicle off. Now according to Infiniti, they're saying that the reason why all three of those lights are on is due to my front ABS sensors that are actually having an open circuit, so they failed. ABS sensors on the front failed, both passenger and driver. Also, they told me that I had a frozen or a stuck caliper on the driver rear, so that's what I'm working on currently. I'm not sure if those lights are going to go off once I put the brake assembly back together, but here's how I unstuck this caliper. So this really isn't an ABS issue, but this pertains to your brake system. So this car came from the northern states, so tends to get a little more moisture and accumulates more rust. Anyhow, when I brought this car back, I had a few issues with it, one of them being this caliper seized issue. And so what I did was tried a few tricks. There's other videos online that will tell you to pump grease through your greaser, or actually, excuse me, your brake bleeder valve. I personally wouldn't want to do that. I don't think that you should have grease anywhere in your brake system. Your brakes can definitely fail. And then guess what? Exactly. So I tried other options. I was going to try to get some compressed air in there, but I figured, you know what? This is a hydraulic system on its own. I shouldn't have to force air through there. And so what I did was I went ahead, I took the caliper off of the brake assembly, and I went ahead and I juiced it up with some Big Shot. This PB blaster here works really well. Okay, it's I like it better than WD-40. So anyhow, what's going on is what you see now is what I did was I took the tool here. It's, some people might use a C-clamp, but I use this brake tool. It's actually to compress the piston on your caliper. It pushes it in. What I really do is I usually use an old brake pad in the middle, but for this purpose I didn't want it to fly off when I was pressing the brakes, so I figured to have this stem from this tool, which you can see what I'm doing. Basically, sorry, I'm unscrewing it. So it unscrews, right? Now, the more room that you give that piston, it's gonna pop out further. As you can see right here, the dimples in my rubber, it's because it's expanded too far. All right, I did that intentionally, just a little too far, a little further than what it should go, just because I'm trying to unseize this particular caliper. Now, after I went ahead and gave it the Big Shot quite a few times, this is about my 5th attempt to allow the caliper piston to move in and out freely on its own. So after the 3rd time, it's working pretty well. I'm gonna go a couple more times just because I'm already here. I'm not gonna go and spend hundreds of dollars on this caliper or whatever it costs, and it's working fine. Now, in addition to that, I think what the real trick was this nut here. Sorry, my camera, I'm not good at filming, as you can tell. So anyhow, this nut here, which is for your brake line, okay, goes all the way to your your braking system. Basically, I think that was loose somehow. So what I did was I just grabbed my impact with a 12mm, okay, stuck it on there. I held it by hand and I just gave it a couple of shots. I wasn't trying to over torque it, or I wasn't trying to bust the nut off inside of the housing. So basically just take it easy on all that. Don't gorilla tighten it, just snug it up a little bit more. Give it maybe 2 or 3 attempts, okay? And once I did that, I think that's what really solved this issue, because once I did that, this piston started moving on its own. Well, I had to apply the brakes. So speaking of that, the way that you want to do this is you need to have a tool or something in there, so that, again, so this piston doesn't fly all the way out and then you don't have a problem there, okay? You don't want it to fly all the way out. You want it to stay in side of the caliper. And so what you do is you definitely want, if you're going to push that caliper piston in, you pop the lid here on your reservoir. Okay, you can remove it. I just like to leave it loose and off so that debris or something doesn't fly in there. So you do that, and then you come back over here and you use your tool. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do that now. I'm sure they got newer tools out there that are probably faster, but you know what I learned? That being patient and taking your time saves you a headache, because more times than not, what's happened with me from my experience is that I'll get in a hurry, I'll start using a power tool for certain things and break something. You know, I have the feel for the snug, and I think that I don't over tighten anything and I snug things up. Now again, this is using one hand. Obviously I'm using my camera. You know what would be cool is if they came out with a body cam or something that we can use to film these videos. Alright, anyway, you can see the piston going in, right? See that? So you want it to go all the way in. Now what's going to happen is my tool is going to bottom out here. So that's the reason why I use an old brake pad in between, so that way it actually pushes this piston completely flush with the caliper housing. Okay. So as you can see, okay, now I bottomed out. I can feel that it's not going in any further. So that's fine. Okay, now what I'm going to do is loosen it up. Now keep in mind, you don't want your caliper to fly out when you press your brake. So think about if you had brake pads and you had this piston on your rotors and everything. I'm loosening this tool here. Now basically I'm allowing the difference here is going to be from here to there is about what I'm going to allow that piston to come out. So now what we're going to do, make sure my jack's tight. I'm losing a little bit of hydraulic pressure. I've got to fix that. You want to close your cap, tighten it, because now you're going to hit the brakes, and if you don't do that, if you forget that, you're going to have air in your system and you're going to have to bleed your brake system. Okay, so I just turn the keys on to accessory. I don't start the vehicle, and I just push the brakes. They go all the way to the floor. Second time, it's getting stiffer. It's a little spongy. Third time, still spongy. Still spongy. It's tight. You hear a little click. tight. Okay. Look at that. Again, look how far out it came. Now, that's probably adequate right there, because if you think about it, when you have new brakes, on, if you have new brakes on, and plus the rotor, the width of the rotor there, and the new brakes, well, that's not going to even go out that far. But again, I did that for demonstration purposes, along with giving it a few more attempts, because it was quote unquote froze or stuck or seized. But again, I'm pretty sure that the culprit was that this wasn't allowing a complete closed system, so it was allowing a little bit of air to escape. I didn't have a leak from there though, so it could have been that microscopic. I mean, I've seen more strange situations happen. So anyhow, so that piston is all the way tight. The tool's not moving. Okay, you have to loosen it in order for it to move. So you see that? So now the piston is working fine. So that's about my 5th attempt. I'm gonna go ahead and do it about another few times. I don't know, maybe 3 more times just to be sure, because last thing I want to do is have to pull everything apart again. So I learned that the hard way. You just basically try the easy things first, okay? Also, what you would want to do is make sure that your brake lines aren't leaking anything. You see all that moisture there? That's actually from the big shop, because as I mentioned earlier, this car is from the northern states. It's from Wisconsin, and there's some rusted bolts and nuts and everything. And so the reason why I do that is, in the future I'm probably going to end up replacing some of these parts, and so I don't want them to be so seized on that they can't come off. I did have to do some front end work, and when I did that, I actually luckily, by the grace of God, I was able to get those nuts and bolts free with using this PB blaster and letting it set overnight, because if not, I would have broke some parts. And if anybody has one of these Infinitis or a Y34, a Gloria, any of those older cars, those older Infinitis, these are rare cars, and so to find bolts just laying around at a hardware store, good luck. Trying to special order them, it's going to take time, along with a little bit of Fetty. So hopefully you got the cash flow for that, because these cars aren't cheap. All right, and if you can get your hands on one, I highly suggest that you do that, because they're getting more rare, and the price is just going to go up. Let me brag on this real quick for a quick moment. So here we go. That's what it looks like. With 350 horsepower stock. There's my other one. Yes, I got 2 of them. This one needs a paint job, but it's a beast. Windshield probably, but I live in Colorado, so our windshields break on a regular basis. I don't see why I would spend $200 every year. So I'll let it go for this winter, and then next year I'll get me a new windshield. There's my Q45. They share the same drivetrain, motor, transmission, just a different body style. Interior is pretty much the same. But this is old school luxury at its finest, in my opinion. I mean, why would I buy brand new when I got some hot rods like this? Yeah, I do dust chargers on a regular basis. I love Dodge, by the way. But anyhow, back to the brake system, yo. Make sure that you're always closing the cap on your reservoir, your brake reservoir, when you're getting ready to pump the brakes, or open it when you're getting ready to push the piston back in. So there's my tip to you guys. Just check all your nuts and your fittings, everything like that. Make sure stuff is tight before you start going out and spending, I don't know what, a couple $100 easily. I mean, again, one of these calipers I'm sure is going to cost at least $100 for sure. So that's my time, yo. I'm sure that you guys got other ideas or tips, and that's fine. Like I said, I'm not a mechanic. I just make shit happen. Do the same.